Hello everyone. In today's class, let us learn about eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Now, when we say some non-zero vector alpha of V as an eigenvector of a linear transmission T, of a linear transmission T from V to V corresponding to an eigenvalue lambda. So, suppose T is a linear transmission from vector space V into itself, and a non-zero vector alpha, which is a vector in V only, is said to be an eigenvector if there exists a scalar lambda such that T of alpha is equal to lambda alpha. That means image of alpha under the mapping T will be equal to lambda alpha. Then this alpha, which is a non-zero vector, note this is not a zero vector, this is a non-zero vector. So your alpha is always non-zero. So this non-zero vector is called eigenvector of linear transmission T or characteristic vector of T corresponding to the eigenvalue or characteristic root lambda. So this alpha is called as eigenvector and lambda is called as eigenvalue, provided it satisfies the condition T of alpha equal to lambda alpha. Remember, whenever they say some vector as an eigenvector corresponding to some eigenvalue, then it has to satisfy this condition. T of alpha equal to lambda alpha. Image of alpha under the mapping T is lambda alpha, right? If this condition holds, then we say this non-zero vector alpha is the eigenvector corresponding to this eigenvalue lambda, okay, under the mapping T. Now, same thing we have studied in the case of matrix, right? What is that? Suppose A is a square matrix corresponding to the linear transmission T, because we know that we can write a linear transmission in terms of a matrix with relative to some basis. So this matrix A is obtained from T with respect to some basis, and a non-zero vector X satisfying the condition Ax equal to lambda x, where lambda is any scalar, then we say this non-zero vector, right, it is a eigenvector or characteristic vector of the matrix A corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda. So this is for linear transmission and this is for matrix. Now you should note that if alpha, which is a vector, non-zero vector, right, then it is said to be eigenvector of a linear transmission provided there exists a scalar. This scalar may be zero or non-zero, doesn't matter. Only this vector should be non-zero, that's it, right? If there exists a scalar such that T of alpha equal to lambda alpha, then we say lambda is the eigenvalue and alpha is the associated eigenvector of lambda for the linear transmission T. Similarly, in terms of matrix, if there exists a non-zero, in fact this is a column vector, if this is a column matrix actually, right? So if there exists a non-zero vector X and a scalar lambda such that Ax equal to lambda x, then we say X is the eigenvector, X is the eigenvector corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda for the matrix A. Okay, now let us see a theorem. Suppose T from V to V is a linear transmission of V into itself over the field F. Then the set of all eigenvectors alpha associated with the eigenvalue lambda of T together with 0 forms a subspace of the vector space V. So by this statement itself, you can imagine or you can understand that for one lambda, there may be many eigenvectors satisfying T of alpha equal to lambda alpha. T of alpha equal to lambda alpha. There might be many eigenvectors satisfying this condition, right? Collect all those eigenvectors alphas, let us say E lambda. So your E lambda is a set of all those vectors alpha which satisfies the condition T of alpha equal to lambda alpha. And note that what is T of 0? If T is a linear transformation, we know that image of 0 is 0. And that 0 can be written as lambda into 0. No harm at all. It is one and the same. Now see, this is of this form. Therefore, 0 is also eigenvector associated with lambda. So this set contains 0 also. Am I right? Now, so we are collecting all the eigenvectors. Eigenvectors means they satisfy the condition T of alpha equal to lambda alpha. And we are calling that one as E lambda. E lambda. And we have to show that this E lambda is a subspace of V. When will you say, or what are the conditions for saying a set is a subspace of a vector space? First condition, it should be non-empty. And whenever we have to say a set is non-empty, we have to show that it contains additive identity. Now here additive identity in our vector space is 0. So we have to show that 0 belongs to this. But 0 belongs to this provided we can write T of 0 as lambda 0. So you are saying instead of alpha 0. So 0 belongs to this if T of 0 is lambda 0. Yes, we know that T of 0 is nothing but 0, but that can be written as lambda into 0. We have written. So this condition is satisfied. Hence, 0 belongs to E lambda. Therefore, E lambda is non-empty. So it contains at least one element. And remember, from where these vectors alpha are coming, these alphas are coming from our domain V only. So all the elements of E lambda are present in V. Therefore, E lambda is subset of V. Hence, both the conditions of subspaces are satisfied, and preliminary conditions. And the remaining thing is we have to show that if there exists two vectors, say alpha 1, alpha 2 belongs to E lambda, and C1, C2 are any two scalars, then we have to show that C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2 also belongs to E lambda. If this condition is satisfied, right, then we say E lambda is a subspace of vector space V. So to prove that subspace, first we have to show it is non-empty, then we have to show it is subset of domain, then we have to show that the linear combination of the two vectors taken from that set is again in the same set. Now we have to show this. Instead of alpha, you are taking C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2. So this belongs to E lambda if we can show that image of this is equal to lambda into C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2. Right? We have to show that this is also eigenvector associated with lambda. That's what we have to show. When will you say this is an eigenvector associated with lambda? Yes, T of this is equal to lambda into C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2. If you can prove that one, then that says that the eigenvector C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2 is associated with lambda. So any eigenvector associated with lambda comes in E lambda. Therefore, C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2 comes in E lambda. Therefore, E lambda is a subspace. This is what we have to prove. Now, we have chosen alpha 1 and alpha 2 are in E lambda. We know that any vector which belongs to E lambda satisfies this condition. Therefore, T of alpha 1 is equal to lambda alpha 1 and T of alpha 2 is also equal to lambda alpha 2. Because alpha 1 and alpha 2 belongs to E lambda means alpha 1 and alpha 2 are eigenvector associated with lambda. So we know this fact. Using this fact, we have to prove. So let us consider T of C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2. Okay. Now what is your T? Your T is a linear transformation. So by linear transformation, that is by theorem 1, we can write this one as C1 into T of alpha 1 plus C2 into T of alpha 2. But what is your T of alpha 1? It is lambda alpha 1. What is your T of alpha 2? It is lambda alpha 2. And you should note that your C1 is a scalar, lambda is a scalar, C2 is a scalar, lambda is a scalar. And your alpha 1 and alpha 2 are present in V, and V is a vector space. So I can apply the vector space condition, that is A into, or you can say some C1 into C2 of alpha can be written as, right, C1 into C2 of alpha, or because C1, C2 comes in field, you can interchange them, C2 into C1 alpha, like that. So by that vector space property, let me take out this lambda outside, then C1 alpha 1 remains, plus here also lambda comes out, C2 alpha 2 remains. Now what we have proved? We have shown T of C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2 is equal to lambda into C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2. We have shown this condition. Any vector which satisfies this condition comes in E lambda. Therefore, this implies that C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2 comes in E lambda. So all the conditions of subspaces are satisfied. Therefore, E lambda is a subspace of domain V. Okay. Now, let us note the set E lambda of all the eigenvectors alpha associated with eigenvalue lambda is called eigenspace, because it's a vector space. It's a subspace, means it's a vector space. So it's called as eigenspace of lambda. Okay. So you should remember one thing, that eigenvalue may have many number of eigenvectors, right? And all the eigenvectors satisfies T of that eigenvector equal to lambda into that eigenvector. Okay. So all those vectors which satisfies this condition, non-zero vectors, 0 always satisfies, non-zero vectors. So those eigenvectors, right, together with 0 is called as eigenspace. Now let's move on to next theorem. Let E lambda 1 and E lambda 2 be eigenspaces corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda 1 and lambda 2. Then we have to show that, right? And remember, your lambda 1 and lambda 2 are distinct. That means lambda 1 is not equal to lambda 2. They are totally different scalars. Then these two eigenspaces will have only one element in common, that is zero vector, right? Because you know that zero vector satisfies T of 0 equal to lambda 1 into 0, and T of 0 is also satisfying the condition lambda 2 into 0, lambda 2 into 0, right? So 0 satisfies the condition this. Therefore, 0 is an eigenvector associated with lambda 1. 0 is also an eigenvector associated with lambda 2. And your E lambda 1 contains all the eigenvectors associated with lambda 1. Therefore, 0 comes here. And your E lambda 2 contains all the eigenvector associated with lambda 2. Therefore, 0 comes here also. So 0 and 0. 0 is common. Therefore, their intersection contains only 0. That we need to show. Right? 0, anyhow, it is coming as a common element. Now, let us assume for the time being that 0 is present. Let us assume that there exists a vector alpha which is common and which is non-zero. So we are assuming that alpha is any common element to E lambda 1 and E lambda 2, and also alpha is non-zero. But we know that we have to prove that it contains only zero element. It does not contain non-zero element. So we have chosen a non-zero element is present in this. Then we have to show that our assumption is wrong. Right? Let us prove that our assumption is wrong. Okay, now since alpha belongs to E lambda 1 and also alpha belongs to E lambda 2, you know that your E lambda 1 is collection of all those eigenvalues corresponding to lambda 1. Therefore, they satisfies the condition T of alpha is equal to lambda 1 into alpha. And since your alpha is an eigenvector present in E lambda 2, and any vector which is present in E lambda 2 satisfies the condition T of alpha is equal to lambda 2 alpha. Now see the left hand sides. Since the left hand sides are same, the right hand sides must also be same. That means lambda 1 alpha must be equal to lambda 2 alpha. Now send this lambda 2 alpha to this side. That becomes lambda 1 alpha minus lambda 2 alpha, and among them alpha is common. So therefore this implies lambda 1 minus lambda 2 into alpha is equal to 0. And you know that any product will be 0 provided either this is 0 or this is 0. So either lambda 1 minus lambda 2 has to be 0 or alpha has to be 0. But remember, we have chosen that our alpha is non-zero. Since alpha is non-zero, your alpha cannot be 0. That means it forces us to assume that lambda 1 minus lambda 2 equal to 0. But lambda 1 minus lambda 2 equal to 0 means lambda 1 will be equal to lambda 2. But this is not possible because lambda 1 and lambda 2 are distinct eigenvalues. That means lambda 1 is not equal to lambda 2. In the statement itself it is there. Therefore, this is contradicting this condition. Hence, our assumption is wrong. What was our assumption? Alpha belongs to this and alpha is non-zero. Alpha is non-zero is wrong. Therefore, alpha must be equal to 0. That means we have proved 0 is the only vector which is present in both of them. Therefore, their intersection contains only 0. This completes the proof. Now let us move on to another theorem. Let alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha m be eigenvectors of the linear transmission T from V to V corresponding to the eigenvalues lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda m respectively. Then this set alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha m is linearly independent, right? So we have to show that this set of eigenvectors are linearly independent. When will you say this set is linearly independent? See, you have to write the linear combination of this, that is C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2, etc. up to Cm alpha m. And you have to assume that this is equal to 0. Who has to assume this? We ourselves. We have to assume that this linear combination is 0. Right? After assuming this, you have to show that C1, C2, all of them are 0. All the scalars are 0. If you can show all the scalars are equal to 0, then this set alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha m is linearly independent. So our aim is to show this, that when we write the linear combination equal to 0, all the scalars will give you 0. Right? So let us assume this is P of m. This proposition we have to show. Let us assume this is P of m. Okay. P of m is C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2, etc. up to Cm alpha m equal to 0 implies C1, C2, etc. up to Cm equal to 0. Now we'll prove this by mathematical induction. Right? First, let us prove this result for m equal to 1. When you choose m equal to 1, you have to consider only one vector. You cannot consider m vectors. Your m is 1 means only one vector. And a set containing only one vector is linearly independent. Why? Because you are considering only this one, C1 alpha 1 equal to 0. That is the linear combination. You are having only one vector. Therefore, we can write the linear combination as C1 alpha 1 equal to 0. And you know, when the product of two numbers is 0, Either C1 is 0 or alpha 1 has to be 0. But alpha 1 is an eigenvector and eigenvectors are non-zero. Therefore, your alpha 1 cannot be 0. So that forces us to assume that C1 equal to 0. That means we have written a linear combination equal to 0 and we have shown that scalars are taking the value 0 only. That means this set is linearly independent. So we have proved the result for m equal to 1. Let us assume that the result is true for m equal to k. That means C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2 etc. up to Ck alpha k equal to 0 implies C1 C2 etc. up to Ck equal to 0. That means the vectors alpha 1 alpha 2 etc. up to alpha k are linearly independent. We have assumed this. After assuming this, we have to show that the result is true for m, which is k plus 1. By adding one more vector, we can prove this. Right? That is what we have to, if you add one more vector, it is true. That is what we have to show. That means we have to show that alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha k plus 1 is linearly independent. Right? Using this result, we have to show this. So that P of k implies P of k plus 1. Similarly, we can continue that. P of k plus 1 implies P of k plus 2, etc. up to m. So that is what the idea behind this. Now, remember, we have to show that the result is true for m equal to k plus 1. That means we have to show that this set is linearly independent. When will you say any set is linearly independent? You have to write the linear combination. That is C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2, etc. up to Ck alpha k plus Ck plus 1 alpha k plus 1 equal to 0. Who has to write this? We ourselves. Then we have to show that C1, C2, etc. up to Ck plus 1, all of them are 0. If you show all of them, all the scalars are zeros, then this set is linearly independent and our proof is over. Now to show that one, let us do one thing. Call this one as equation 1 and consider T of C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2, etc. up to Ck alpha k plus Ck plus 1 alpha k plus 1. But this is equal to T of, we know that this is 0. This is 0. Therefore, T of 0. And T of 0 is 0 because T is linear. Now, because T is linear, we can write the scalars outside. Therefore, this becomes C1 into T of alpha 1 plus C2 into T of alpha 2, etc. up to Ck into T of alpha k plus Ck plus 1 into T of alpha k plus 1, which is equal to 0. Now, let us come for this. What is your alpha 1? Your alpha 1 is the eigenvector corresponding to lambda 1. So, when will you say some vector is the eigenvector corresponding to some eigenvalue? If it satisfies T of alpha 1 is equal to lambda 1 into alpha 1. Lambda 1 into alpha 1. Right? Similarly, alpha 2 is the eigenvector of corresponding to lambda 2. Therefore, T of alpha 2 is equal to lambda 2 into alpha 2. Is that right? Go on, proceed. Your alpha m is the eigenvector corresponding to lambda m. Therefore, T of alpha m is equal to lambda m into alpha m. Let us use that fact. So, using that fact, we can write T of alpha 1 as lambda 1 alpha 1. T of alpha 2, you can write here. Because T of alpha I is equal to lambda I into alpha I. Lambda into alpha I, where I runs from 1 to m. Okay, because of that fact. So T of alpha 1 is lambda 1 alpha 1. T of alpha 2 is lambda 2 alpha 2. T of alpha k is lambda k alpha k. T of alpha k plus 1 is lambda k plus 1 alpha k plus 1. Let us call this one as equation 2. Okay. Let us call this one as equation 2. Now what we do is, we'll multiply this equation by minus lambda k plus 1. We'll multiply this equation by what? Minus lambda k plus 1. Then this becomes minus lambda k plus 1 C1 alpha 1 minus lambda k plus 1 C2 alpha 2, etc. minus lambda k plus 1 Ck alpha k minus lambda k plus 1 into Ck plus 1 alpha k plus 1 equal to 0. That is what this, right? This one, second one. We'll add that one with equation 2. So this is your equation 2. Add that with this. Multiply equation by minus lambda k plus 1 and add. Now, in the first two terms, in these two terms, C1 alpha 1 is common. If you take it out, then lambda 1 minus lambda k plus 1 comes. In these two, C2 alpha 2 is common. Lambda 2 minus lambda k plus 1 comes. Go on, proceed. You'll get lambda k minus lambda k plus 1 into Ck alpha k plus 1. Here, lambda k plus 1 minus lambda k plus 1 into Ck plus 1 alpha k plus 1. These two cancels. That is 0. So, you're left out with lambda 1 minus lambda k plus 1 multiplied by C1 alpha 1 plus lambda 2 minus lambda k plus 1 into C2 alpha 2, etc. up to lambda k minus lambda k plus 1 into Ck alpha k equal to 0. Right? You are having only up to the vectors alpha k, alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha k. Now, what is your alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha k? We have assumed that alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha k are linearly independent. That means any linear combination with alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha k, any linear combination of these vectors is equal to 0, then scalars must be 0. Right? So here we got some scalar into alpha 1 plus some scalar into alpha 2, etc. up to some scalar into alpha k equal to 0. Because they are linearly independent, all these scalars, that is lambda 1 minus lambda k plus 1 into C1, lambda 2 minus lambda k plus 1 into C2, etc. lambda k minus lambda k plus 1 into Ck must be 0 because these are linearly independent. But we know when the product of two numbers is 0, one of them is 0. So either lambda 1 minus lambda k plus 1 is 0 or C1 is 0. You know lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda k are distinct. That means lambda 1 can never be equal to lambda k plus 1. They are totally distinct. When they are distinct, right, they cannot be equal. When they are not equal, that will not give you 0. Therefore, this is non-zero. That forces us to assume that C1 is 0. This is non-zero, therefore C2 is 0. This is non-zero, therefore Ck is 0. So we got C1, C2, etc. up to Ck is equal to 0. Now substitute that in equation 1. Your C1 is 0, C2 is 0, Ck is 0. You're left out with Ck alpha k plus 1 is equal to 0. But we know that product of these two is 0 provided one of them is 0. So either Ck plus 1 is 0 or alpha k plus 1 is 0. But alpha k plus 1 is an eigenvector. Therefore, it can never be 0. So that forces us to assume that Ck plus 1 is 0. So we got from equation 1, C1 alpha 1 plus C2 alpha 2, etc. up to Ck plus 1 alpha k plus 1 equal to 0, implying that your C1 is 0, C2 is 0, Ck is 0, and also Ck plus 1 is 0. That means all the scalars are 0. Therefore, your alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha k, etc. up to alpha k plus 1 is linearly independent. Is linearly independent. That means we have proved that the theorem is true for m equal to k plus 1. That implies that by mathematical induction, the result is true for m vectors. That is, any set of eigenvectors are linearly independent. That is what we have proved. So the set of all eigenvectors are linearly independent. Now let us see a corollary. if V is the vector space of dimension n. Dimension n means the number of basis elements is n. The linear transformation T from V to V can have at most n distinct eigenvalues. So that means the number of eigenvalues of T will be maximum n, or it may be less than n. Right? That is what we have to show. Okay, let us assume there are m distinct eigenvalues with m greater than n. So who is assuming this? We ourselves, that the linear transformation T has m distinct eigenvalues and the number of distinct eigenvalues are greater than dimension. Then we have to show that our assumption is wrong. Right? Because we have taken m distinct eigenvalues, we have to show that m is less than or equal to n. Then it implies that it can have at most n distinct eigenvalues. Okay, so we have assumed that our m is greater than n. And remember, these are m eigenvector corresponding to the m distinct eigenvalues. And by the above theorem, the eigenvectors are linearly independent. Therefore, these eigenvectors, these m eigenvectors are linearly independent. And what is the dimension of n? Dimension of n is, dimension of V is n. That means it can have a basis containing n vectors. Basis means what? It is linearly independent and spans. Right? Basis set is linearly independent and spans. Therefore, basis is linearly independent and it contains only n elements. Any number of elements more than n, right, will be linearly dependent. There is a theorem in our vector space which says if the dimension is n and if there are n plus 1 vectors, then that set is linearly dependent. But here our set is linearly independent. Our vectors are linearly independent and m is greater than n. This is not possible because the basis contains n elements. At most we can have n elements which are linearly independent. Therefore, this is not possible. That means our m cannot be greater than n. So number of vectors must be at most n. That means it can have, right, either equal to n, that is n vectors, or less than n. Therefore, T can have at most n distinct eigenvalues. So what is the logic? Because it has n distinct eigenvalues, it is of dimension n, the linearly independent vectors must be maximum n or less than n. And we know by the above theorem, the eigenvalues are linearly independent and at most n linearly independent vectors are there in V. Therefore, number of distinct eigenvalues must be less than or equal to n. That is what we have proved. Okay. Now let's move on to next theorem. Suppose V is a vector space and T is a mapping from V to V, and V is of dimension n. If T has n distinct eigenvalues, say lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda n, then there exists a basis of V consisting of eigenvectors of T and matrix of T relative to the basis. I mean, this basis is diagonal and conversely. Okay, so they are given a mapping which is linear and dimension of V is n, and this mapping has n distinct eigenvalues, lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda n. Then we have to show that there exists a basis of V consisting of eigenvectors of T, and the matrix T relative to this basis is diagonal matrix. We have to show it is a diagonal matrix and conversely. Since they are given n distinct eigenvalues, for each eigenvalue there exists at least one eigenvector. Therefore, let us assume that alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha n are the eigenvectors of T corresponding to lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda n respectively. That means T of alpha 1 equal to lambda 1 alpha 1, T of alpha 2 equal to lambda 2 alpha 2, etc. T of alpha n equal to lambda n alpha n. And you know by the above theorem that the eigenvectors are linearly independent because there are only n vectors. Of course, it is linearly independent, right? Therefore, first condition of the basis is satisfied. First condition of the basis is satisfied. Further, what is the dimension of V? N. Since the dimension is same as number of linearly independent vectors, straight away we can say that this forms a basis. Because in the case of finite dimensional vector spaces, to say that a set is basis, it's enough to verify one of the conditions. Either you show that number of linearly independent vectors is same as dimension of V, or spans. So since number of linearly independent vectors are same as dimension of V, these n linearly independent vector forms a basis of V. So this is the first thing that we need to prove. There exists a basis of V consisting eigenvectors of T. Okay, and these are the eigenvectors of T. We have proved, right? Therefore, we have shown that alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha n forms a basis of V. Now, further we have to show that the matrix of T relative to this basis is a diagonal matrix. Okay, so this is our B or B1, and B2 is also same. B1, B2 are same. You know how to write a matrix of a linear transformation. So how you're going to write matrix of a linear transformation? We have to write image of B1 elements, that is T of alpha 1, T of alpha 2, etc. as linear combination of B2 elements. But B2 is also same. That means we have to write T of alpha 1 equal to some scalar into alpha 1 plus some scalar into alpha 2, etc. up to some scalar into alpha n. This is alpha n, right? Similarly, T of alpha 2 equal to some scalar into alpha 1 plus some scalar into alpha 2, etc. up to some scalar into alpha n. Similarly, alpha n, T of alpha n equal to some scalar into alpha 1 plus some scalar into alpha 2, etc. up to some scalar into alpha n. If we can write in that pattern, then we can write the matrix. You know, you have studied in the lower classes how to write a matrix corresponding to a basis. We have to write image of B1 elements as linear combination of B2. But B1, B2 both are same here. Okay. Further, what is your alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha n? They are eigenvectors of the linear transformation T corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda n. When you say these are eigenvectors of these, if they satisfy T of alpha 1 equal to lambda alpha 1, T of alpha 2 equal to lambda 2 alpha 2, etc. T of alpha n equal to lambda n alpha n. But we can write this one as T of alpha 1 equal to lambda 1 alpha 1 plus 0 into alpha 2, etc. up to 0 into alpha n. There is no change in the answer. It remains same. Now, T of alpha 2 equal to 0 into alpha 1 plus lambda 2 alpha 2, etc. up to 0 into alpha n. So, T of alpha n equal to 0 into alpha 1 plus, this is 0 into alpha 2. 0 into alpha 2 plus, etc. up to lambda n into alpha n. So, we have written B1 elements as linear combination of B2. See? Then what is the matrix? We know that we have to write the coordinates in column, that is scalars, lambda 1, 0, 0, etc. up to 0. Second row, right? What are the coordinates? 0, lambda 2, etc. up to 0. Write them as columns, 0, lambda 2, etc. up to 0. then the coordinates of last one becomes last column 0, 0, etc. up to lambda n. See this is a diagonal matrix. The non-zero entries are present in along the diagonal, and upper half of this as well as lower half of this is 0. That is triangularized matrix. So we have proved that the matrix of T relative to the basis of eigenvector is diagonal matrix. Now let us prove the converse. Right? Let us prove the converse. Conversely, suppose that, right, the linear transformation T has been expressed as a diagonal matrix. But we know when it can be expressed as a diagonal matrix, if and only if there exists a basis alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha n of V, for which this condition has to be true, isn't it? From this condition only we have written this matrix. So when you can write this matrix, this can be written only if there is a basis alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha n, for which this is true. But if this is true, means your alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha n are eigenvalues associated with alpha 1, lambda associated with eigenvectors. Alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha n are eigenvectors associated with lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda n. That is what we needed. So if the converse is true, means if there is a basis of V, which is eigenvectors of T, and the matrix of T is relative to the basis is diagonal, then we have to show that, right, these eigenvectors are corresponding to the eigenvalues lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda n. That is what. So if there is a diagonal matrix, then we can find a basis, and that basis is corresponding to the eigenvectors, provided this is true. That is what it has been written. If there exists a basis of V for which this is true. But this implies that, what is the meaning of this? This is nothing but alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. up to alpha n are distinct eigenvectors, or eigenvectors corresponding to the distinct eigenvalues lambda 1, lambda 2, etc. up to lambda n. And this completes the proof. Now let us see one more theorem. Suppose T is a mapping from V to V, where V is a vector space over the field F, then any scalar is an eigenvalue of T if and only if the transformation T minus lambda I is singular. Right? We know what is the meaning of lambda is eigenvalue of T. When will you say it is eigenvalue of T? If there exists a non-zero vector, say alpha, which is a vector in V, satisfies the condition T of alpha equal to lambda alpha. Then we have to show this is true if and only if, since there is if and only if, we have to prove by both the way, T minus lambda is singular. That is T minus lambda I of alpha is equal to 0. That is what we have to show. Right? Now let us prove this way first. Assume that T of alpha equal to lambda alpha. T of alpha equal to lambda alpha, then send this lambda alpha to this side. That becomes T of alpha minus lambda alpha equal to 0. But we know that the identity mapping gives, right, image of alpha is alpha only. I of alpha, I means identity mapping from V to V, defined by image of alpha is alpha. So I can write instead of alpha, I of alpha. Let me take out alpha outside, so that this becomes T minus lambda I of alpha equal to 0. That is what the required condition. So we have proved that T minus lambda I is singular. Now, what is the converse? Because we have to show if and only if condition. Suppose T minus lambda I is singular. If it is singular, then T minus lambda I of alpha equal to 0 for any alpha non-zero, right? But this implies that we can write this one like this. But this implies we can write like this. But this implies that this. That means alpha is the eigenvector corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda of t. That completes the proof. Right? Okay. After this, we are having few notes which are essential for solving the problems. So a scalar is said to be eigenvalue of a matrix A of order n cross n, right? If there exists a non-zero column vector x1, x2, etc. up to xn of n tuples such that Ax equal to lambda x. That means if you want to find a eigenvector, it has to satisfy the condition Ax equal to lambda x, right? And you should note that your A is of order n, that is n cross n, and your x should be non-zero. Then on, because in our case the eigenvectors are non-zero. So what must be the order of this? Right? This has to be a column vector, because we know we can multiply two matrix provided the columns of first vector is same as row of second vector. So this has to be of order n cross. Since it's a vector, it can have only one row or one column. Since there are many rows, n rows, column has to be one. Right? That is what we have written here. x1, x2, etc. up to xn transpose. That means this takes x1, x2, etc. up to xn. This is your x. Okay, column matrix. So how to find eigenvector? When they give matrix, you have to use Ax equal to lambda x, where x is non-zero. Right? And how you're going to find the eigenvalue? Eigenvalues are nothing but roots of the characteristic equation of A. That is determinant of A minus lambda equal to 0 gives you the eigenvalues. Right? And further, you should note that suppose A minus lambda is singular and lambda is the eigenvalue of a matrix A, then Ax equal to lambda x as a non-zero solution, where x is non-zero column matrix. Because see, we always know that A into 0 matrix is lambda into 0. This always, it is satisfied by Z. It is always true. That's why we are not taking 0, right? We are not considering. We are saying you consider non-zero matrix or non-zero vector, because this is trivial, right? Trivial means the system has a trivial solution other than zero solution, right? Here your x is 0 means all our coordinates are 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, etc. like that. So when you'll say a system has a non-zero solution, right? If A minus lambda is singular, then the system, that is Ax equal to lambda x, possesses a non-zero solution. Okay. So I'll stop at this stage. We'll continue in the next class. Thank you.